It is the fourth day of the month of September 2020. Good evening and a very warm welcome to Channel 1 Weekend this Friday. I trust you had yourself a fantastic day and thank you so much for choosing Channel 1 for your news update this night. And of course, hopes that the curve on COVID-19 may flatten soon, even as the Ministry of Health or the country once again recorded 179 cases of COVID-19 from a sample size of about 4,000. And when you compare this to what we were witnessing weeks ago, from such a sample size, Kenya would record up to over 500 cases of COVID-19. So we have details of that and much more. Be part of this broadcast by tweeting us, and we are also actually live on Facebook and YouTube. You can stream live at Purity_Museo and at KBC Channel 1 News. The hashtag to use is Channel 1 Weekend. Let's begin our broadcast with the news highlights. Jubilee Party Vice Chairman David Murathe distances himself from the KEMSA COVID-19 equipment procurement scandal.
4,178 samples, of which 179 have turned positive.
Minister of Health projects flattening of the COVID-19 infection curve if the current trend of test results continues.
Not be blackmailed, threatened, or our integrity murdered by a few governors who are afraid to account for the many billions in their disposal.
And it's a blame game as the Senate Public Accounts Committee accuses the Council of Governors of blackmail. Thank you once again for joining us tonight. My name is Purity Museo and Simon Karodha is our sign language interpreter tonight. Let's begin our broadcast. Larry MP John Mburu will spend the weekend in the cell after he was arrested Friday morning by detectives from the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission over 27 million shillings scandal. This as Jubilee Vice Chairperson David Murathe exonerated himself from having a hand in the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority COVID-19 procurement saga. Suleiman Yeri reports.
The fight against corruption intensified Friday with Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission pouncing on Larry Member of Parliament John Mburu, accusing him of misappropriating CDF through fictitious constituency development projects. Mburu was grilled for the better part of Friday before being locked in the cell to await his day in court on Monday. Also grilled by the detectives from EACC was the Jubilee Vice Chairperson David Murathe on his alleged connection with the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority COVID-19 procurement scandal. Speaking after spending close to 4 hours with officers from EACC, Murathe said he was summoned to provide more information based on an interview he held recently with a local television station.
I am being dragged into this issue because of my association with William or Wilbrod Gatei. We've got evidence that Wilbrod transferred shareholding of this company to associates of the Deputy President. So I have given my piece and I have demanded anybody who has raised or commented or purported to know the COVID billionaires and who stole what, I have demanded that they should be summoned.
Murathe revealing that Killing Limited, which he is associated with, did not receive funds from KEMSA.
I know Killing did not deliver anything to KEMSA. I know Killing was not paid a penny by KEMSA. I know Killing's order was cancelled before the due date, and the reason was budgetary constraints, that there was no budgetary allocation. I know that because I have asked William, who is known to me, exactly what happened, because my partnership with him is dragging me into this mess.
Meanwhile, Director of Public Prosecution DPP Nurdin Haji ordered the arrest and prosecution of Tharaka Nithi Governor Muthomi Njuki as well as various county officials over the irregular award of a solid waste project contract worth over 34 million shillings. According to DPP, Westo Max Investments Limited, a company that had submitted fraudulent documents, was awarded the tender. DPP said he was satisfied with the recommendations of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission on the involvement of the governor in the tender award. According to EACC, the project was procured, implemented and commissioned without an environmental impact assessment and license from the National Environment and Management Authority. Suleiman Yeri, Channel 1 News.
Moving on, the Minister of Health is projecting brighter days in the fight against COVID-19 if the current trend of few daily infections continues in the next 4 weeks. On Friday, the Minister of Health announced 179 new positive cases out of the 4,178 samples tested in the last 24 hours. Chief Administrative Secretary Dr. Rashid Aman said the government will seek the help of the Africa Center for Disease Control to establish the scope of the country's COVID-19 spread. Simon Achola with the details.
The Chief Administrative Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Rashid Amani, continued with assessment of the county's preparedness in the fight against COVID-19, this time round pitching camp in Bomet County. It is here that the ministry gave an encouraging assessment of the country's position in the fight against the global pandemic.
The trajectory of the disease seems to be different in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, than in other countries. That does not mean that that curve can change in a bad direction at any time, and that is what we want to avoid. We don't want it to change into a bad direction. We need to continue to do what we are doing so that we keep pushing it and our numbers keep reducing, and we hope that we at some point can move to a situation of normality.
This is not a time to drop the ball. We need to keep going, and in the next 3-4 weeks, maybe we'll have very good news.
In the last 24 hours, 179 out of the 4,178 samples tested turned positive. Nairobi continues to account for the largest number of new infections, with 66 new cases in the last 24 hours. Garissa is second with 21 cases, while Turkana and Nakuru counties have 12 cases each. Busia and Taita Taveta counties posted 10 and 11 respectively.
That we are now focusing on event-based surveillance and community-based surveillance using our community health volunteers. That events that happen at community level are quickly picked up. Then they are responded to through our rapid response teams. This is where we pick the majority of the cases that we test. That is the suspect cases plus the contacts of these suspected cases.
Dr. Aman says owing to the current trend of few infections, the ministry is consulting the Africa Center for Disease Control help analyze the situation in the country.
To do what is called a seroprevalence survey, to be able to tell us the magnitude of the problem or the burden of the disease at population level. So we'll do sampling of various counties, pick up specimens, analyze. This will be able to tell us more what is happening globally in terms of COVID-19 in Kenya.
Meanwhile, the government has set the record straight on burial protocols for patients who succumb to COVID-19, saying families should not procure personal protective gear for Ministry of Health officials involved in the interment ceremonies.
To ensure adequate availability of PPEs for protection of the frontline healthcare workers, including the community health volunteers. If there's any family member who has been charged for PPEs, especially for a burial, because that is a double jeopardy, then that should be reported to us for appropriate action.
Achola Simon, reporting for Channel 1 News from Bomet County.
And Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has reiterated that schools will remain closed until the country's coronavirus curve flattens as per the World Health Organization's standard. Magoha argues that it would be unrealistic to gamble with the lives of Kenyan students. At the same time, he regrettably noted that only 2 TVET institutions countrywide had met the laid down protocols for gradual reopening. Speaking in Meru County during an inspection of Meru National Polytechnic to ascertain the institution's preparedness, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha sent a strong indication that schools in the country are unlikely to reopen anytime soon.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say that we are at maybe a point number 4 out of 10. And we are going to continue unabated, because unfortunately our mindset has to change. The principals have not yet changed their mindset. Otherwise, this is the 6th week that we are going around, and we should have just found everything almost ready everywhere we go.
According to the CS, some institutions do not have enough thermoguns, while others have not put in place measures to ensure that students maintain social distance.
The fact that we staggered away from September did not mean that we don't continue to ensure that they are ready to reopen. I want to dare say that this is a good institution under reasonably strong leadership, but the leadership requires a little bit of firm direction from the chair. There's no reason why all parts of this institution should not be like I'm seeing on the floor here. There are still parts which are reminiscent of incompetent leadership of the yesteryears, and the government is not going to accept that.
The CS reiterated that consultations among key stakeholders, including parents and teachers' unions, are all in agreement that schools can only reopen once the COVID-19 curve is flattened.
Have we hit 5% in terms of the COVID behavior? The answer is no. What does World Health Organization say? When you hit 5%, you wait for 2 weeks. Why are you in a hurry? The thing is coming down. Why are you in a hurry?
And the Senate Public Accounts Committee is now accusing the Council of Governors of trying to blackmail the Senate to camouflage the plundering of public resources in the counties. Senators have dared governors to make public any of its members who have sought to extort from them instead of resorting to what it termed as cheap propaganda.
A day after the Council of Governors accused the Senate's County Public Accounts and Investment Committee of harassing and extorting county bosses, senators have fired back.
We shall not be blackmailed, threatened, or our integrity murdered by a few governors who are afraid to account for the many billions in their disposal.
Senator Ungeri, who chairs the Accounts Committee, accused some county bosses of hiding behind the Council of Governors to run away from accountability. Ungeri daring any aggrieved governor to make public any member of the Senate who has tried to extort from them. On Thursday, Governor Wycliffe Oparanya said governors will not bow to what he described as the extortionist nature of the committee, even as he called on relevant security agencies to take up the matter.
They cannot threaten that the EACC and DCI should follow this committee. They are here. The ACC sits in this committee.
The committee recently fined and ordered the arrest of Murang'a Governor Mwangi wa Iria for snubbing the committee summons.
We have since asked Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutyambai, to arrest and present the Governor of Murang'a before the committee on September 10th to answer audit queries in 3 financial years from 2015 to 2018.
The directive by the Senate has, however, been stayed by the High Court after the Murang'a governor rushed to court to block his arrest. The lawmaker said instead of the Murang'a County governor addressing himself for failing to honor summons or otherwise produce himself before the committee, he has taken a dangerous path of casting aspersions on the integrity of the committee. For Channel 1 News, I am Edward Kabasa.
Elsewhere, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is scrutinizing allowances earned by state officers with a view to rationalize them from the July 2022. The move, according to SRC Chairperson Lynn Mengich, would help reduce public sector salaries to sustainable levels. SRC says the government, which has been straining to pay salaries, is targeting to reduce public sector salaries from the current 48.1% of the total revenue collection to 35%.
Salaries and Remuneration Commission has rolled the third public sector remuneration cycle, a 4-year review cycle for the remuneration and benefits for both state and public officers. The plan seeking to ensure that a public wage bill matches the national development and revenue growth patterns.
The wage bill at 48.1% of revenue is above the Public Finance Management Act target of not more than 35% of revenue, thus crowding out resources that could be used for development priorities and enhance social service delivery.
During the first review that covered the period between July 2013 to June 2018, SRC Chairperson Lynn Mengich says that the wage bill stood at 57.3% of the country's revenue. This was reduced further to 48.1% in the current cycle that covers July 2018 to June 2022.
By the Commission issuing salary structures for every state and public officer, that means then you put a control on what institutions can pay.
The reductions are, however, way below the government's target of containing the wage bill to less than 35% of total government revenue. Hence, SRC targets to review allowances earned by public officers by scrapping or reducing amounts earned in a salary harmonization process targeting to make the wage bill manageable.
In the absence of a common policy framework to guide determination and payment of allowances in the public sector, different institutions pay allowances using different justifications, eligibility criteria, rates, and modes of payment.
In the third public sector remuneration cycle, SRC is undertaking a job evaluation and salaries survey to inform the pay for public officers, even though the Commission warns it might not be rosy due to reduced revenue generated as a result of the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic that has affected nearly all sectors of the economy.
So if our target was this year it has slowed down to 1.6 trillion. That means even the wage ratio or the wage bill itself should not grow significantly, because if it does, then it means the ratio from 48 may increase up to 49 or 50.
The job evaluation and salary survey will last for the next 10 months.
Thank you, Kamche Mensa, for that report. Kamali on Twitter, you're saying you're tuned in from Kagio Town, Kirinyaga County. Thank you so much. William Wamburi also tuned in from Watamu. Thank you so much. Daniel Maithia, you're saying you're watching Channel 1 Weekend from Kiambu County. Keep talking to us and telling us where you tuned in from. Remember, we're also live on Facebook and YouTube. You can stream live at Purity_Museo and at KBC Channel 1 News. ICT Cabinet Secretary Joe Musheru has challenged institutions under the ministry to strive to offer better services to Kenyans. Musheru says that the ministry will be monitoring all its institutions to ensure that they serve Kenyans to the highest standards.
It was an event that brought together state corporations under the Ministry of ICT for a performance contract signing. ICT Cabinet Secretary Joe Musheru challenging institutions under the ministry that they will be assessed based on collective and individual performance on services they offer to Kenyans.
But the aim is for us to be able to ensure that even during this time of COVID, as government and as a ministry, we're really providing the Kenyans with the services that they require, providing the information that they need, the services that the ministry has a responsibility for.
The CS noting that the COVID-19 pandemic had presented a new frontier for the information and communication sector, which all should harness for the better of the country.
The way technology has developed and has grown, and the way the country has implemented the infrastructure that we've put in place, both as government and the private sector, has enabled Kenya to take full advantage of the technology opportunities that have arisen, primarily because it's been difficult for people to meet during this pandemic time. But with technology, we can still have efficient meetings.
Among the corporations that signed their performance contracting Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, represented by the Managing Director Dr. Naim Bilal, Kenya Institute of Mass Communication, and the Kenya Film Commission, among others.
That report brings us to the end of the first part of Channel 1 Weekend. Of course, still ahead, we tell you when we come back how women in Baringo County are helping in the fight against COVID-19 by making home detergents, which include sanitizers, soaps, and even bleach. Stay ahead for that.
Next on.
Oh. You and Margarita are still seeing each other, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Why?
Nothing. Forget it.
In love with Ramon. KBC Channel 1 evokes the full potential of worship in you.
You are the living God.
You waited for me, just for me.
Join us for an experience like no other when it comes to lifting your soul and giving adoration.
We are here for you.
Worship experience. Praise mix. This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Lauren, is that you?
It's me.
The number of women killed is not 375. The real number is probably closer to 5,000.
5,000.
Some girl escaped.
This girl was attacked, strangled, buried, and left for dead. And she crawled out of her own grave. She wants to find the guys who did this. I will not let anything happen to you. And I will find this man. This is an important story.
Your story is destroy her. And they will kill you.
You're watching Channel 1 Weekend this Friday night. Makueni Governor Professor Kivutha Kibwana is urging the government to embrace open contracting to curb corruption. Kibwana said that through open contracting system that Makueni County government adopted in December last year, they have saved as much as 30 million shillings from the roads department alone. He said open contracting has enhanced accountability and transparency in its operations.
Speaking in Nairobi, Makueni Governor Kivutha Kibwana says that his county is already witnessing the fruits of adopting the open contracting system 1 year since it was introduced.
That is the basic problem within our country, where even as we transited from manual procurement to e-procurement through IFMIS, still that information in IFMIS is not readily available to members of the public.
He revealed that so far the county has carried out 389 contracts worth 1.6 billion shillings. Kibwana says the issue of individuals awarding themselves tenders using their own companies will be a thing of the past. Even open contracting system was adopted.
This is its first kind in Kenya, and all these are available to public for scrutiny on our portal. And if we were simply using the e-procurement of IFMIS, this information would not be open to the public. And this is therefore the difference.
The Makueni boss has, however, said that they intend to share the system with the National Treasury and the Council of Governors so as to ensure that it's embraced nationally. His sentiments were echoed by constitutional expert Bobby Mkangi, who said the principles of public finance have been violated by different entities.
But most importantly, the entrenchment to ensure that this is a going concern. It is not a venture that is within one regime or administration.
There are sentiments coming in the wake of alleged theft of COVID-19 funds and PPEs, with fingers pointing at loopholes in procurement. Timothy Kipnusu, for Channel 1 News.
Fighting coronavirus remains a challenge across the world. Experts say that hand washing with soap, when done correctly, is critical in the fight against the COVID-19 disease. However, according to the latest report by the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF, millions of people have no access to a place to wash their hands. A skills training program in Chesim village in Baringo County is helping women fill this gap through soap making and in the process empowering families economically. Deep in Baringo County is a little known village, Chesim. Locals here are well aware of COVID-19, the disease that has literally crippled the world.
Wakati huu wa corona ni kuwaelimisha community ama familia jinsi ya kukaa ili wasikuwe na hofu wakati huu wa corona, kwa sababu watu wengi wamepoteza matumaini.
Wearing face masks and washing hands with soap and water are normal aspects of personal hygiene and grooming for residents of Chesim.
Tunajikinga kwa hii ugonjwa ya corona kwa njia ya kusanitize mkono, kufanya usafi na unaosha hata manyumba kila mahali uone uko sawa.
According to the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF, about 40% of the world population, or 3 billion people, do not have a hand washing facility with a soap and water at home. Nearly 3/4 of the people in least developed countries lack basic hand washing facilities at home. Soap is not readily available for many.
CMC, then
a skills training program in Chesim village is helping women take lead in the fight against COVID-19 disease through making soap, sanitizers, and bleach.
The challenge that we had was that people are not able to buy soap. You realize that the rural economy is not really money-based. People just depend on various simple ways of living.
It takes the women 30 to 45 minutes to make 10 liters of soap.
Tangu tuanze hiyo mafunzo ilitusaidia sana kama community ya Chesim, na hata mazingira yetu imebadilika.
Reagents include water, base, acid, color and perfume.
Tunatumia kemikali ya industrial salt, na pia tuko na kemikali ya ufa acid, tuko na kemikali ya ungarol, tuko na kemikali ingine inaitwa caustic, na tuko na ingine inaitwa CMC, tuko na kala, pia tuko na perfume. Tunaanza na kuweka kwa besheni industrial salt, alafu unaweka ungarol. Ungarol unakoroka mpaka inamaliza ile chumvi ya industrial salt ndio itoke safuni ubomfofu. Alafu ukimaliza hiyo unaweka maji ni base. Unaweka ukishamaliza kuweka maji unaweka acid yenye inaitwa ufa acid. Acid inasaidia kukatalyze ile industrial salt na ungarol. Alafu ukimaliza kuweka ufa acid unaweka maji kama base. Ukimaliza kuweka maji unaweka caustic. Caustic inasaidia kukatalyze ile ufa acid ndio isikuwe acid sana. CMC inasaidia na caustic kukatalyze ile acid. Ukimaliza hiyo sabuni yako itakuwa form. Sasa unachakua ni kala kani unaweka. Ukipenda hata uweke kala fulani kama blue, kama ile yetu blue, tumechakua blue.
Thereafter, the blue-colored liquid soap is stored for 10 hours before use. The process of making homemade alcohol-based sanitizer is even simpler.
Kutengeneza ya 5 liter jerrycan, unaweka maji ya 4.5 liters. Alafu unaongeza kemikali nyingine inaitwa NB9. Hiyo ni acids. Una stir for 5 minutes. Uongeze ingine inaitwa DOD. Na hiyo ni base. Una stir for 5 minutes. Pia uongeze ingine inaitwa formaldehyde acid. Hiyo ni alcohol based. Hiyo unaweka for hiyo 30 ml. Then una stir for 5 minutes. Unaenda baada ya hiyo unaweka kala. Kala iko na rangi ya pink. Sasa kuweka kala una stir for 5 minutes and then baada ya hiyo uweke perfume. Hiyo perfume inasaidia tena ina catalyze because this color ina produce color and then hiyo formaldehyde ina produce harufu. Hii sasa color ina reduce hiyo formaldehyde acid isikuwe strong. Sasa baada ya hiyo kuweka color una stir for 5 minutes. Then after 5 minutes unaiweka ikae for 10 hours. Then you use.
Bleach is also produced in bulk for washing clothes and cleaning surfaces.
Bleach tunaitengeneza, tunaitoa bleach ile yenye iko kong, yenye itaongezwa na maji, na tunaweka kwa maji lita 5, alafu tunaikoroga kwa dakika 5, alafu iweze itumike.
Residents purchase the products at a discounted rates.
Lita moja tunauza 100, alafu tunauza nusu lita, na 50 bob tunauza 300 ml na 30 bob.
Public health officials in Baringo County say the detergents are fit for use.
It's good because this is something that's being prepared when you're seeing. So, in other words, it's as safe as these other detergents that are being used.
With these home-based hygiene products, including the detergent, which is a soap for washing hands, the sanitizer, and a bleach, the community members here are confident that the fight against coronavirus, at least for now, will not overwhelm them. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News, Chesim Village, Baringo County. And the part 2 of what is happening in Baringo County for communities that rely on especially movement from place to place in search of pasture. We will be helping you know how these farmers and the pastoralist communities are dealing with the COVID-19. Remember, there is a dusk to dawn curfew, and therefore this restricts their movement. So how are they faring on, especially in ensuring they get pasture for their livestock? That report comes your way tomorrow, Saturday, same place, same time. Property of unknown value was destroyed in the Kisii County Assembly after a mysterious fire outbreak. Area Governor James Ongwae has since announced closure of the affected part of the county assembly to allow experts to carry out forensic investigation.
The cause of the fierce fire which engulfed the county assembly chambers could not immediately be established since electricity had been put off as Kenya Power technicians carried out repairs. Fortunately, Governor Ongwae said no injury or documents damage was reported and that the fire had been contained almost immediately.
I'm aware that there were no documents in the chambers. There is no document that has been spoiled, has been messed up in the chambers, except the machines.
According to the governor, the affected sections were the Hansard communication system in the chambers and the public gallery. However, Ongwae announced closure of the affected part of the county assembly for a probe into the incident.
As a CEO of this county, I'm closing off the entire of that area. We will have to get expert advice on what happened, but from the preliminary indication is that the fire was off and they were repairing, I think Kenya Power were repairing the power here. That's around the same time that the fire occurred.
Kisii County Assembly Speaker David Kombo expressed shock as he remarked the disaster came at a time the county assembly had lined up motions to assist residents tackle COVID-19.
I'm informed by those who are here that electricity was not there since morning, but when it came, that is when the fire might have started. I would call for relevant authorities to do a forensic inquiry into what caused the fire to come out.
Curious residents called for thorough investigations into the fire incident to allay any fears of wrongdoing to public property.
And a group of farmers in Kitui County has defied the climatic conditions in the region to venture into rice farming. The farmers are upbeat about their new venture and hope to prove that rice can be grown in an area scarce of water.
As you step into a small farm at Kunguluni village along River Nzeu in the outskirts of Kitui town, it will be easy to confuse the area for Mwea rice farms in Kirinyaga County, thanks to innovative ideas of Itambio's self-help group. Here, Richard Museo, a local farmer with the technical assistance of Martin Kasina, a water engineer, has gone against the grain and plunged into rice farming in slightly over 1 acre piece of land. To the amusement of his neighbors who keep flocking his farm to get a glimpse of the wonder crop in a dry county, Musioka's venture seems to have succeeded, and in about a month, he will be harvesting his first harvest.
Kianzia nilikuwa nafikiria ni kazi mingi sana kwa sababu mimi hufikiria mchele ukaa kwa ndani ya maji, lakini tukaanza tukaupanda na tukaendelea kunyunyuzia maji kutoka kwa mto Nzeu na tukaendelea na tukaona inatoa matunda mazuri. Kwa sasa tumefikia stage ya mchele kutoa mbegu ama kuzaa.
The lush vegetative cover lying side by side in designated plots has defined the semi-aridity of the area where rice farming will instantly be dismissed as a joke. But the ambitious farmers have succeeded in an activity nearly impossible in the area.
Kwa area hii ninaona inaweza kufaulu, na tukiendelea kipata matokeo mazuri kwa mavuno tutaendelea kukuza zaidi.
Traditionally, everybody believes that rice can only be produced under flooded conditions. So I have, being in the irrigation sector, we have done a lot of research and come up with conclusions that rice can be planted with a minimum available water.
Before he decided to give rice farming a shot, Musioka used to grow vegetables, but most of which will go into a waste due to lack of enough market for the commodity. But with the help of engineer Kasina, he does not regret the decision.
Kuna mboga zingine zinaharibika kwa rahisi na uzuezi kuzihifadhi zikakaa kwa muda mrefu. Kwa hivyo nikaonelea mchele pia ukiweka hauwezi kuharibika na hauwezi kuharibiwa na wadudu.
So here we have decided to take the two varieties and check whether we can customize the conditions that we have and at least produce something that can increase the income of farmers apart from the traditional crops like cassava and maize that they have been doing.
However, the project has come with its fair share of challenges.
The main challenge here is the cost of pumping water, because we are pumping. Abstraction is through pumping, unlike in Museo and Western Kenya, where abstraction is through gravity. So that is the main challenge. And then we also have the climate change. We can see it is already August, but the temperatures are very low.
The pilot project, which started with 2 varieties of rice, an upland variety known as Nerika and Basmati 370, commonly known as Pishori, has turned out a tremendous success. The success seen so far has attracted the interest of other local farmers who have consequently formed a self-help group to embrace rice farming in the region.
Hii kazi ambayo tumeona hapa ya kupanda mchele ambayo imeletwa na Museo na engineer Kasina, tumeona ni jambo ambalo linaweza saidia wakulima hapa Kitui, na kama self-help group tumesema kwamba we borrow from the same.
Mradi kutoka tukuja tuangalie kutoka ukianza na pale umefika, tumeuchukulia so positively, na ni mradi ambao uko very encouraging, because kama tu vile nimesema, you cannot imagine that mchele inaweza kukua Kitui.
The farmers are highly motivated to prove the possibility of growing rice in dry lands.
And from the counties, residents of Nairobi's Tasia estate are up in arms with the city's leadership for failure to address their pressing problems, among them bad roads, lack of sewer system and clean piped water in the area. The residents claim an open sewer in the vicinity has claimed numerous lives, the latest being a young child. This and more stories in the news making headlines in the counties.
Demonstrations in Tasia area of Nairobi have been rampant, with residents decrying challenges they've faced for years. They claim they have accommodated dilapidated infrastructure for many years and they will not take it any longer. They want action taken immediately to avert more deaths and injuries, citing the death of a young child, which they say could have been avoided.
Tunakaa na uchafu, marojwa na barabara hatuna. Na sewage inakaa kwetu. Manyumba yanatukuta kwa nyumba. Na hata imechibwa sasa, hatuna mahali ya kupita.
And it was all smiles for President Uhuru Kenyatta lookalike, popularly known as Uhunyewa Omo, after he was awarded with a brand new Nissan Note vehicle worth over 600,000 shillings by Maridadi Motors located along Kiambu Road. The motor dealer CEO, Eric Mwangi, said the move was part of their corporate social responsibility as his business were hit by the pandemic, leading to their closure, and was not a public relations stunt.
We would want to assist our brother Michael to restart his business in the taxi industry by empowering him with a vehicle.
Elsewhere, Migori County Woman Representative Dr. Pamela Odhiambo has put on notice leaders of vulnerable groups who freeze their members of their contributions. Dr. Odhiambo spoke while distributing checks for the vulnerable groups in Timaru, Kuria East constituency.
In the past, I had cases where these leaders colluded and they would share this money out without members of the group even knowing that we have given the money.
Meanwhile, sugarcane farmers in Kakamega and Bungoma counties are breathing a sigh of relief following the purchase of 19 brand new tractors and trucks by West Kenya Sugar Factory with an aim of increasing cane productivity in the region. The move will ease turnaround of cane harvesting and processing in the area and will save many farmers who have been incurring losses from uncollected cane.
Brand new tractors for the farmers. This is basically for the farmers. We as a sugar company cannot mill sugar without farmers. And farmers have been complaining in our areas of cane sitting on the ground too long, so we are investing in the farmers with new equipment for them.
While a section of farmers from Garissa County who do vegetable and food farming along River Tana have accused a contractor of blocking the road leading to their farms. The contractor is building a dam across the road which has affected 8 farms belonging to different groups.
Sasa wametufungia barabara. Sisi kama walima 8 hatuna barabara.
Finally, police in Kirinyaga County have arrested 4 poachers and recovered elephant ivory worth 9.5 million shillings. The suspects were traced to their hideout at a house in Gatuthuma village in Kirinyaga Central Sub-County, where the trophies were found hidden in a bag. Confirming the arrest, Kirinyaga County Police Operations Officer Gideon Mugambe said the suspects are believed to be notorious poachers linked to various incidents in Mount Kenya region and Aberdare Forest.
Wakati tumepata walipatikana na officers wa KWS wale ambao wako sehemu ya Aberdare National Park, ndio walifuatilia. Baada ya kupata wale wakafuatilia wakapata hao, tukaletewa hao police station ya asubuhi ambayo ni Kirugwe police station. Mahali walistakiwa, walifunguliwa mashtaka na wakapelekwa kotini.
In the world news, the World Health Organization has said that once a COVID-19 vaccine is approved, Africa will get at least 220 million initial doses. Now, the first batch will prioritize frontline healthcare workers and vulnerable groups.
Africa will target at least 220 million initial doses once a COVID-19 vaccine is approved. According to the World Health Organization, Africa Program Area Manager Richard Mihigo, frontline healthcare workers will be given priority. He said distribution will be based on the population of each country. WHO says all 54 countries had expressed interest in a COVID-19 vaccine. The Global Vaccine Initiative, called COVAX, intends to help purchase and fairly distribute 2 billion doses of approved vaccines by the end of 2021. The initiative has 9 vaccine candidates that are being tested globally, including 2 in Africa. Globally, more than 23.6 million coronavirus cases and 868,000 deaths have been confirmed, according to Johns Hopkins University. India recorded a total of 3.94 million cases, closing in on Brazil as the world's second highest tally. Brazil has now recorded more than 4 million cases of coronavirus, but the daily average deaths has dropped to its lowest level in 3.5 months. Elsewhere, the leader of military junta that ousted President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita visited him at hospital where he was admitted before being discharged. The military leader Assimi Goita and his delegation said the former leader was free to seek further treatment abroad if need be. Keita was admitted at the private hospital after a mini stroke. He was detained by the military junta that ousted him on August 18th for 10 days.
And on KBC Channel 1 Facebook page, Kenywa Chalo, you're watching from Machakos, Ikombe. And then Boni Wazee, you're saying you're watching live from Ekware Kisi with your father, Samueli Orechi. Thank you so much, Boni. David Sonya watching from Huruma Flats in Nairobi. Alex Koech, you're saying you're tuned in from Subukia, live from Kericho Brook areas. And then we have Oresam Mathiseiro, you also tuned in from Ikolomani. Enos Omodi, you're watching Channel 1 Weekend. Kalem Kale, you also tuned in from Bomet County. Keep watching, keep tweeting, and of course texting. We are back with business news shortly. Stay with us.
This weekend on KBC Channel 1.
Kama umeona hawa jirani zako?
Hawa ndugu yangu walikuja polisi.
Oh, Hariri. Naambie za masiku.
Asa tukashikwa mimi na brother yangu, tulikuwa tujavaa mask. Tumewekwa quarantine.
Basi hata tulikuwa tukuzungumzia hapa na mzee tukiulizana mbona hukuja kwa ule mkutano. Hariri alipatikana na mashaka, alipelekwa karantini.
On the next episode of Behind Closed Doors.
It's now time for business news, and the government has embarked on aggressive marketing of its port facilities and services, hoping to attract more vessels as competition for business with the Port of Dar es Salaam intensifies. East African Community and Regional Development Cabinet Secretary Eden Mohammed said the government is addressing a number of issues raised by private stakeholders to improve efficiency at the Port of Mombasa to increase its throughput.
The Port of Mombasa has been facing stiff competition for business from the Port of Dar es Salaam, with some importers in Uganda, Rwanda and DRC processing their cargo at the facility. To win back the business, East African Community and Regional Development Cabinet Secretary Eden Mohammed says the government is addressing issues raised by the importers about the Port of Mombasa.
New protocols and procedures have been put in place, especially for movements of cargo across the region. And starting from the people who use the Port of Mombasa across the northern corridor, there has been a number of things that has been introduced in terms of facilitating movements, in terms of making sure that no driver leaves this port or load without having a COVID certificate.
Speaking at the Port of Mombasa after meeting port stakeholders to discuss business bottlenecks at the facility, the CS said automation of more services has been identified as being key in improving cargo handling and efficiency.
Apart from the actual efficiency of the port itself, the distance to the final destination is also a big influencer, and the role that the distance to different towns and cities cannot be ignored. And so, for example, some countries like Burundi and Rwanda are much closer to the Port of Dar es Salaam than here. But we want to compensate for that longer distance through better efficiency and improvements in the services that our port people are able to offer.
The Port of Mombasa and that of Dar es Salaam have over the last 2 months introduced a number of promotional tariffs to maintain businesses as traders seek cheaper facilities to process their cargo. Reporting for Channel 1 Business News, I'm Michael Moniga.
Moving on, the National Treasury has signed a 1.02 billion shillings grant from the Japanese government that will be channeled towards improving the country's healthcare system. National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukuri Atani says the cash will go towards equipping and modernizing health facilities across the country, as well as fight the coronavirus pandemic.
Last week, the government signed a loan agreement with the Japanese government amounting to 8.14 billion shillings to fund phase 2 of the universal healthcare coverage. The government has received an additional 1.02 billion shillings from the Japanese government for provision of medical equipment, which National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukuri Atani says will be installed in various health facilities across the country.
We have signed today for a grant of 1.02 billion Kenyan shilling for the provision of medical equipment will be installed in various health facilities and will greatly enhance healthcare delivery to Kenyans.
The cash is expected to be channeled towards equipping and modernizing health facilities.
UHC Phase 2 loan, and this grant will contribute to achievement of healthcare strategic goal of attaining equitable, affordable, accessible and quality healthcare for all, which is part of the Big Four agenda, presidential Big Four agenda.
Kenya has signed another 243.54 million shillings grant with Japan to fund scholarship of civil servants.
We hosted Tokyo International Conference for African Development in Japan, and President Uhuru Kenyatta attended, and all the African leaders attended, and all the African leaders and Japanese Prime Minister agreed to promote our relations on business, trade, investment between Japan and the African.
The development comes just weeks after National Treasury signed a 4.2 billion shillings loan with France to support the country's healthcare infrastructure and fighting COVID-19 pandemic. Benson Drioba reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Elsewhere, the Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization has rolled out a 3.5 billion shillings green grams project in 7 arid and semi-arid counties. Director General Dr. Eliud Kiger says that the Climate Smart Agriculture project targets to increase production of green grams by 20% to meet growing demand.
Currently, Kenya's annual green grams consumption stands at 130,000 metric tons, against a production of 103,000 metric tons. This has seen Kenya importing green grams from the East African nations to bridge the deficit. As a long-term solution, the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization has rolled out a green gram cultivation project in 7 arid and semi-arid counties, targeting to increase production per hectare to 730 kilos from the current 570 kilos.
Green grams yields in Kenya are generally low, at about 300 kilograms per acre, or 570 kilograms per hectare, or 3 bags per acre, compared to global average yield of about 360 kilograms per acre, or 4 bags per acre.
Under the project, farmers in the 7 counties will undergo a 6-month training on best green gram husbandry and equipped to reduce post-harvest losses.
A module that will be coming up soon on post-harvest, where it's not just dengus boiled and eaten, but you can value add and actually increase the value of this particular crop.
Caro will also forge partnership to source markets for the produce.
Farmers also get discouraged by lack of access to structured markets and trade in green gram production. Those who venture into green gram production often suffer huge post-harvest losses due to poor threshing methods.
The Green Grams project will be rolled out in Tharaka Nithi, West Pokot, Baringo, Taita Taveta, Machakos and Tana River counties. Benson Rioba reporting for Channel 1 Business.
Time for the Sport and Football. Kenya Federation's Electoral Board has published a preliminary list of candidates who will vie for various positions at the national level after the conclusion of the nomination process last Monday. The list includes 5 presidential aspirants and their respective running mates.
5 Football Kenya Federation presidential aspirants Nick Mwendwa, Boniface Osano, Dan Mule, Herbert Mwachiro and Omondi Aduda are the only aspirants who are being cleared to vie for the position by the Electoral Board. Sam Nyamweya, Nicholas Musonye, Sami Shole and Twaham Barak, who failed to submit their nomination papers, have not been included in the list of eligible aspirants. The board has in the meantime scheduled a 7-day dispute resolution window as provided for in the electoral calendar, where complaints on the nomination process, county and national, shall be welcomed. The dispute shall be heard by the Electoral Board between Saturday to Monday next week. The final list of county and national level candidates is set to be published on the board's website on 11th of this month. County elections are set to be held on September 19th, while national elections shall be held on 17th of October. Frederick Moki for Channel 1 Sports.
New Chelsea signing Timo Werner scored for Germany before Spain rescued a point with a 95th minute equalizer in the UEFA Nations League match played last night in Stuttgart, and Werner showed why the Blues paid £54 million for him when he drilled past David De Gea inside the penalty area. Both teams were returning to international action for the first time in almost 10 months. In other results, Moldova settled for a barren draw with Kosovo as Slovenia and Greece registered a similar result. Ukraine claimed a 2-0 win over Switzerland, while Russia thrashed Serbia by 3-1. Wales won by a solitary goal against the Finland as Turkey lost 1-0 to Hungary. And that brings us to the end of Channel 1 Weekend this Friday night. Thank you so much for your company and for choosing Channel 1 for your news updates this Friday night. Thank you for your feedback on Twitter. A lot of you were watching even on Facebook. Thank you so much. Time is not on our side, but I'll go through just one or two. Caleb, you're saying you are watching from Kericho County. That is Caleb Tinani, and Anthony Kamitu also tuned in from Kitengela. Thank you once again. I'll see you again tomorrow, same place, same time. My name is Purity Museo. Simon Karoda has been our sign language interpreter tonight. Do enjoy the rest of our programming, and of course, good night and God bless.
Good evening and a very warm welcome to Channel 1 Weather Updates. I hope you're well. Friday it is. My name is Irene Mchoma Odem. Tonight, it's raining over a few areas in the capital, Central Highlands, the Lake Basin region, northwestern parts of the country, and the northwestern parts of the country. This, as the rest of the country, has been covered with partly cloudy conditions, and that is how the night will be. Tomorrow, the capital will be cool and cloudy during the early morning hours. Weather conditions that will also prevail in Machakos, Makindu, Taita, Taveta. The northeastern parts of the country will mainly be sunny. In the county of Lamu and Kilifi, sunny conditions will prevail, but there will be light showers of a few places in the county of Mombasa during the early morning hours. There will be rains along the border of Kenya and South Sudan and a few areas around Samburu. These are sunny conditions dominate the Lake Basin region and western parts of the country. Weather patterns that will change during the afternoon hours. We'll see an increase of wet conditions over this sector of the country. These are showers accompanied by thunderstorms, and these will be limited to Kitale, Eldoret, Bungoma, Kisii, and Kakamega. There will be showers in the capital during the afternoon hours. Weather conditions that will also prevail in Meru and Machakos, similarly in Nyeri during the late afternoon hours. The northeastern parts of the country and the coastal strip will, for the better part of the afternoon, experience sunny conditions. Temperatures have slightly gone down. Mandera and Lodwar will experience highs of 35 degrees Celsius. The capital will experience highs of 23 and lows of 14 degrees Celsius. And on that note, let's now cross the borders and have a look at the international forecast. Rain or shine, be warm. See you tomorrow, God willing.
Ninakusalimu mpendwa msikilizaji. Mimi ni Bishop Pius Wafula wa Bible Life Ministries hapa Nairobi. Nataka nisome neno la Mungu kutoka kwa kitabu cha Ezekiel mlango wa 37 kuanzia pale mstari wa kwanza. Mkono wa Bwana ulikuwa juu yangu, naye akanichukua nje katika roho ya Bwana, akaniweka chini katikati ya bonde, nalo limejaa mifupa. Akanipitisha karibu nayo pande zote, na tazama palikuwa na mifupa mingi katika ule uwanda. Nayo ilikuwa mikavu sana. Akaniambia, mwanadamu, je, mifupa hii yaweza kuishi? Nami nikajibu, e Bwana Mungu, wajua wewe. Akaniambia,